to use your words in a possible drawn line, well then say, don't use my words. Don't quote me. I said, but if it's okay for me to quote you, to use your words, if you don't say don't, well then I just might do that. Okay, good. So that's what I did in part one. I described in my column, and again it's on the Wonderful if you want to look it up, I described what the situation was with these exams on literature in English language and so on and so forth. But that first column, a column is only about 800 words. This is about 800 words in English is all. That cannot handle all of the data, all of the neirum, the content that comes to anybody's mind who's writing about this topic. Okay? So that's why I had column one to introduce the topic and discuss it, part of it, and then the second column that you have with you now goes farther in the discussion, and here I actually quote as many of the students as I could. Okay, now there were oh golly, 68 students in the course, and very interestingly, and I talked about this in column one, a number of students refused to be in the survey. I don't know why, but they did not hand in. I mean, I gave them the time in class, the last 15 minutes of one night, and I actually stepped out in the hallway. I did not want to be in the room as they wrote. I did not every minute. I wanted the students to feel okay. If they did not want to write, they did not have to. Well, I think I had 12 of those students, something like 12, refused to give me one word. They wanted nothing to do with the survey. Oh, by the way, in the survey, I did ask them, the students, to say whether or not they are interested in the English department, whether or not they like to read English literature or American literature. This is American literature. I asked them to define themselves, describe yourself. I'm not interested in this course, or I am a little bit interested, or yeah, I'm quite interested. I asked them to say how they felt about that question of interest. There's another question. What the dickens was it? It has to do with, I said, if we had no exams, just Baudau, just journals, would you still do the reading in the same way? Would you study as hard? I thought that was a good question. Okay, so those were questions hovering around. All right, now let me say something before we look exactly at the text. You'll notice quote marks, Shuangyin Hao, throughout this column especially. That's of course because I used the direct words of my students. Even if they made mistakes, I usually did not change the mistakes. Sometimes I did, but normally I just used the same words in quote marks that the students used. And by the way, I do these diaocha probably once a semester in my columns. Maybe sometimes once in 2 semesters, but I do use the diaocha method sometimes, and I think readers are like that. And I also have, I have a feeling, excuse me, that some teachers may bring my columns to English classes for hui hua de ke, push it away, and they can use the columns to discuss the English and the content and so on with their students. So I thought, well, English majors may be a little bit interested in this topic. I hope so. I don't know if anyone did that yet. So you will see many Shuangyin Hao, okay? Please be aware that I'm not asking about their interest in Chinese literature or in Taiwan literature or in Japanese literature. I'm only asking about their interest in literature in English language, okay? So it's either English literature courses they've had exams in or American literature. A big question, a big shock I had was fairness. 2 out of 3 students in this survey. So in the survey there were around In the end, there were 55 or 54, okay, who were in the survey, who actually responded. 2 of every 3 said, my grade isn't fair. The grades I get in exams for literature and English are not fair to me. And then they try to explain, some of them, why they say that, why they feel this. That was a big shock to me. And it made me think, what about my grades? What am I doing in my exams? If the students feel the grading for the exams is not fair, what do they feel about the course grades? I do a lot of things in grading to make sure as many pass as possible, no matter what they do in the exams. But I think fairness is a very sensitive, very important issue for all of us. And certainly we need to pay attention to fairness problems for students if they feel it's not fair. Okay. I use the word caveat, C-A-V-E-A-T, at least 2 times. Let's look at the first time. Look at the 3rd column. So on the left, you see my picture, that's the 1st column. Then go to the right, and then go right over to the 3rd one. The survey often reveals words laced with similar caveats. What is a caveat? A caveat is a warning, or it's a tiaojian, it's a kind of a condition. So a student may say, well, I like exams, normally it's okay, but if I've had a hard time with my job during those months, I don't like exams at all. That's a caveat. In other words, they attach a condition to a statement they make. Or they give a warning to me that somehow this statement, well, I can't, 我不可能100%全全不不的做一个说明，因为这个理由不是那个理由，所以你要了解，你看我的看法，这是我一部分的感觉，但是除了这个以外，我也有，但是不太会表现出来。That's a caveat. Okay. All right. Shall we just kind of touch down on this and see if this will lead to questions from you about English, or about the content, or about writing a column? Let's see if we can talk a little bit later today together about what we find here. Now I will kind of go over this with you, but I'll read some of this at the beginning. I promise, I'm reading now next to my picture, if you look at the words. I promise to soon return to last week's topic of students' reactions to a certain type of examination. I've decided that soon means today. So why do I put Shuangying Hao around soon? May, do you have a copy?
No. Should I
You
get
do?
one?
Oh, you should get one, of
Okay.
course. Oh, yes, you should have one. Please get one. Good. So why do I use Shuangying Hao around the word soon? Because it appears in the first sentence, I promise to soon return, and I want to emphasize the word soon. Okay, so I put quote marks around it to say, well, I'm focusing on that meaning of the word in a special way. Readers unfamiliar with the very limited anecdotal survey I wrote of here last Sunday may want to review that situation by visiting the China Post website. So here I give the readers the reference to the column of the week earlier, and I give the title, Pondering Dun Dun, and I give the date, 11 would be 11月, and 16号, 14年, 2014. Anonymous. Now what is an anonymous thing? No name. So unless you do give me a name, if you write something down with an email address, and if you happen to give me your name, you don't have to. Well, if you give me your name, then it's not anonymous. But this was an anonymous diaocha. I did not know, I had no idea which students said what in their responses. Okay, good. Anecdotal, this means that 有一点点不正式，有一点点自由. It's it's a non-scientific diaocha. I mean, for example, I wrote the questions on the board. Okay, I did not print out on a sheet of paper diaocha and give them each a copy. I wrote the questions on the board I wanted them to respond to. I asked them to go and give free opinions. Tell me a story about an exam that you had that you were happy about or not happy. These are anecdotes. An anecdote means a short example describing an experience I have had or an idea that I have. This is an anecdote. So an anecdotal survey means it's based on experience that I myself have had or I've seen my classmates have, something like that. Okay. We'll go down. The anonymous survey drew 54 voluntary participants in a course in American literature in the 9th Division English Department of my university. If you look to the bottom right corner, you'll see Fuda's name. So my university readers would know I'm from Fuda. Because I say that, if you look at the very end of the column, the right-hand corner in the Guahao, Father Daniel J. Bauer, SVD. SVD is Sheng Yan Hui, Hominum Latin, when Societas Verbi Divini. Societas means group or society. Verbi means word. Hui, that would be, well, that's Divini means holy. So SVD means Societas Verbi Divini, the group of the holy word. That's our name for our woman. Shenfu Shoshu Shou Hui, or Shu Yu Jie Shou Hui. Okay, so that's why SVD is after my name. Is a priest, is Shenfu is a priest, and then Fu Jiao Shou, associate professor, so Ying Wen Chi, it's Fu Da. So I have that at the end of each column. Okay. So then I explained that the students had never had an exam with me. Okay, fine. I think the thing to see some of the statistics is important. I asked if they would still seriously read the literature in our course. For example, top of the second column, if it had no exams. Of 54 students, 29 said yes, 7 no, and 18 not sure. That made me feel they were telling me the truth. I could believe that with 55 students responding, 18, that's almost half. Half of 55 would be 23 students? So a little less than half. So they're not sure they would do the reading. Okay, that's, I thought, okay, that's honest. I think that's honest. Okay, then a whopping 2 out of 3 students felt the grades they'd gotten for exams on literature and English, not course grades, but on exams, were unfair to them. Okay, so then I explain, I remind the reader that all of the diaocha, diaocha de xue shan,是大师的同学. Okay, all is Ying Wen Xi. And earlier I had said 是万上的是金秀部. Okay. Now I did ask the students if they wanted to, they could write down Banqiao, Taipei, Kaohsiung, Taichung. Where are you from? If you want to tell me if you are a male, Nansheng 或是女生，还有呢，除了这个以外，你是本来你的地方，你的家在什么地方？ They could also tell me that. Okay. I think a bell did not ring, but I want to give you a rest break. So that's what I did at the beginning here. I reminded the readers of the conditions for the survey, and then I go ahead and I start quoting what students say. Okay. So here's the way I teach. I believe that you work hard and I work hard. I'm really perspiring a lot. And so when the bell rings, no bell is ringing, but it is 5:30. Let's take a 10-minute break. And if you want to chat with me, I'm very happy to chat. But let's take a break, a rest break for 10 minutes. Okay? Then we'll come back to the break.